Something I truly love about Love and Deepspace is how my opinion of the characters changes and evolves the more I get to know them. And this process of getting to know them is so seamless and natural that I'm truly feeling like this is a relationship. On top of that, given the nature of the game and the continuous release of content, it becomes a truly ongoing process of both getting to know them and self-discovery. Caleb has only been out for a few months, but what a whirlwind it has been. I have to admit, my first impression of him was extremely negative. I was totally in the camp of people who got very irked by him locking up the MC, manipulating her, and lying to her. That whole introduction story triggered something visceral in me, a deep fear that came from my own survival stories of being a woman in this world, and a reminder of a few abusive situations I have sadly found myself in through the years. I actually think the first month or so I could not even force myself to play through his myth because of how repulsed I was. However, a few things slowly started to soften my initial reaction. Firstly, I think his cafe interactions are just so lively and adorable. I believe it's partially because he's the latest addition to the team, thus his animations are so much more vivid and realistic, and the voice acting is incredible. Secondly, his other 5-star memory cards offered way less polarizing stories, allowing us to see much more vulnerable sides of him, like the look in his eyes after waking up in endless summer and distinctly reaching out to the MC, the pain in his face in painful signals, and the face he makes when MC tells him to hug her with his right arm. That moment when she accepts him and you can see there is nothing else in the world that matters to him in that moment. We're seeing him sick in hidden waves and both craving the love and care of the MC, but also being so afraid to show her that he can be weak, he can be unwell. And thirdly, the stories that are slightly removed from the introduction one that triggered me so much. I mean both the stories showing young Caleb before the explosion in the alternative worlds like Catch-22 and Decoherence myth. This is where the process of my self-discovery through Caleb gets even deeper, because I find two interesting myths that make me see the character in a more complex way and understand him and what he might mean to others and myself. Firstly, I too used to have a very close childhood friend who was a bit older, and unfortunately we drifted apart over the years in many ways because he started having romantic feelings towards me while I was still too young to be ready. But the thing is, there was a period of my life when there was someone next to me that behaved exactly like Caleb. A passionate person who loved arts and crafts, who we played Lego with, and who I had those cute teasing interactions based on deep familiarity with. And I know that after knowing each other through our shared childhood, that shift to potentially something more was scary and painful and weird. And getting to know Caleb, I think I'm starting to rethink the experience of my childhood and understand my friend better and treasure that experience I had a lot more. Not something I thought I would ever say after playing a dating sim. The second real-life feedback was reading people's reactions and interpretations on Reddit, and a very interesting conversation I had with one of my subscribers here. This is mostly about how clingy Caleb is. I personally don't like it, and it is the reason why I'm not that big of a fan of Raphael. I need space and support and security, like what Silas gives. That was a conversation for a different time. Yet, I see people who find the way Caleb loves warm and beautiful, and their love for this character is exactly what started opening my eyes to that maybe he's not the bad guy after all. And then I had the biggest realization so far about this character. Caleb is a survivor. He really doesn't know much about the world except surviving. And being in a survival mode for a very long time truly warps your perception of the world and yourself. No matter what origin story we take, him and the MC always start as orphans and later test subjects. Imagine being a kid that craves love, acceptance, and guidance, and instead just being treated as a thing, something that is never enough and only serves a purpose. Being abandoned by your parents and only given crumbs of attention if you do what the cold grown-ups tell you. I really think this is the origin of Caleb's all-devouring inner belief that he's not enough. A belief that shows its ugly face in different situations, be it when he tells the MC that he's afraid for her to see him weak in hidden waves, when he playfully teases her that she's not giving him enough praise in Skyline, and it is why he hides his arm in painful signals, because it is a sign of him not being strong enough at that moment and losing something, not being the old Caleb anymore, and he's afraid she might not accept him. This is also the origin of why the MC is the only one who can give him at least some reassurance, love, and acceptance, why she's the only one he would hear. Once again, imagine that you're a kid that barely knows anything about the world, and everything in that world is cold and hostile, except one person. A person who shares your circumstances and who doesn't need anything from you, and someone who is potentially even having it worse. Since we know both in Decoherence and the main story, the MC used to get her memory wiped during the tests. You naturally bond, you naturally want to protect that person, but you can't. You know you have to become stronger, and you know you have to do it on your own because no one else will help you, and because you're in a better situation, because at least you have your memories. How can anyone ever feel enough in a situation like that? And imagine surviving for years in this state while being a naturally good person who wants to protect, who is willing to take responsibility. I don't think this is something you can truly ever completely get out of your system, that fear of not being strong enough, smart enough, that at any moment what little happiness you have can be taken away. Luckily for Caleb and MC, they do get a little bit of time to have a normalish childhood thanks to Josephine, though I bet her own subconscious guilt still affects them too. But when I listen or read stories from that time of their lives, I always feel like Caleb is wearing a mask, like he's anxious and is trying to cram good things into everything, and I get it now. It is because of his trauma. He's both trying to enjoy the peaceful time, but is also trying to get as strong as he can so he can protect the only person he cares about, the only person who has always been with him, and the only person who is in a way a lot more innocent and pure compared to him because she doesn't remember everything. Or at least that's probably how he thinks. I wonder if when he says, "How could you possibly understand my sin and my guilt in lucid dream," or when he asks the MC if he's a monster to her, he's referring to the things he had to do to survive and how being in that state makes you feel. Because that is the weird thing about surviving, especially when you're doing it for someone who you see as better and purer than yourself. It makes you feel dirty. It creates a darkness inside that never allows you to feel like you're good enough, like you deserve good things. You start believing that all you deserve is the cold, the dark, and death. And on top of that, his fears and inability to accept the good are sadly not baseless. As we learn in Serpent's Cast, Ever has been keeping an eye on him, and he knows it. And he knows the dark shadow is still looming over him and the MC. Yet we can see that young Caleb is fighting. He's trying to be normal, to have a normal life. Sometimes his childlike innocence comes through, sometimes the boyish charm, and he even allows himself to just be a guy, though we still see how dearly he loves the MC and that the cool guy is a mask, but I think he's starting to have hope there. But it all comes literally crushing down when the house explodes. We learn in Serpent's Cast that he was not supposed to get that gravely injured, but he used his evil to contain the explosion and did everything he could to protect the MC. Now imagine, after everything they have been through, after surviving and getting a glimpse of normalcy, he's once again a test subject. Now with even more strings and control over him. Once again, he's the only one who knows what is going on. He's tainted, dirty and impure. He failed to keep the peace and he got broken. He has no hope for himself. The only thing he feels he can still do is try his best, even at the cost of his own life, to preserve that blissful innocence of the MC, to keep her away from the harm, the pain, the taint. He's in pain, desperate, and has tunnel vision on one goal, because otherwise he will collapse. And he truly can't understand why the MC would want to share his burden, why she wants to know, because to him letting her be a part of this world of pain is a defeat. He doesn't want her to ever experience the pain he's in. And honestly, once I understood this about Caleb, I stopped blaming him. I still don't like his actions, but I get it. Unfortunately, I have been in situations where I felt like I could only rely on myself, like I had to protect the ones I care about from the darkness of this world, and like I was already too far gone, yet strong enough that I should be the only one to bear this burden. And I don't think anyone could say or do anything at the time to change my mind, because fighting the darkness and sacrificing myself, who had no hope left, was the only purpose left. And I think that is something akin to what Caleb is going through. He's stuck between being human, wanting love, affection, cuteness, all the things he doesn't think he deserves, but also feeling like he's the only one that stands between the happiness of the MC and the dark reality of their world, and he should be the only one getting hurt because he's already broken, and because he loves her so much that the only thing he knows to do to show that love is survival and sacrifice. And yes, comparing him to a guard dog makes too much sense. And this is why he almost loses it every time the MC shows him affection, acceptance, wants to share his burdens and stand beside him. He truly can't believe she might want someone broken like him. But he hopes. And you know, I'm so happy to see this guy's getting so much love in the fandom. It's obviously up to Infold, and he's obviously not real in our reality. But I still hope he can feel how much people love him. Be it because he's cute, funny and charming, or because they see their own demons through him. And maybe, just maybe, because they believe he deserves love, they will believe that so do they, and let Caleb and all of us find our own paradise.